Po from Kung Fu Panda hates his own life so much that he escapes into kung fu fantasies. He's convinced he'll only matter when he becomes a kung fu master. Jake from Adventure Time treats his existence like one long, weird picnic. He'll spend an entire day making sandwiches, or just lie in a field talking to his best friend at the cost of taking anything too seriously in life. Two completely different starting points, two completely different approaches to life, but both arrive at the same destination, actually enjoying the life they have instead of waiting for a better one. So, today we're using these two chill guys to answer a very serious question. How do you actually learn to love life itself, regardless of what happens? Starting with Po, who starts at a place where most people are. In the first movie of the series, Po spends his days working in his father's noodle shop, but he's not really there. He's daydreaming about being the legendary warrior, imagining himself as everything he's not. The opening scene makes this painfully clear. We see Po in 2D animation as a legendary kung fu master, moving with perfect grace and confidence. Then we smash cut to reality, Po waking up in a messy room, overweight and clumsy, being yelled at to make noodles. Just like me. The contrast here shows us Po's fundamental problem. Every aspect of his real life feels like evidence that he's just not enough, not strong enough, not graceful enough, not worthy of respect or admiration. He has his idols and they can do all of that, so why can't he? Po can't love his life because he can't love himself. When you believe you're fundamentally flawed, existing in your own skin becomes unbearable. But his shame is actually the first step towards something better. Po's transformation begins with his father's most important lesson, and it's not about kung fu at all. When Mr. Ping finally reveals the secret to his legendary secret ingredient soup, Po expects some magical formula. Instead, his father tells him,
"The secret ingredient is nothing."
At first, Po is confused. How can nothing be special?
It's just plain old noodle soup? You don't add some kind of special sauce or something?
Don't have to. To make something special, you just have to believe it's special.
This hits Po like a revelation. He's spent his whole life believing that specialness comes from external things, like being chosen by the Dragon Scroll. But the secret ingredient soup works because Mr. Ping put nothing into it. Or, well, he put his love and his affection and his effort into it. Because he believes in what he's doing. Po realizes the same thing applies to him. There's no secret ingredient that'll make him worthy of love or respect. He has to believe that he's worthy first and then act from that place, and only then will other people acknowledge that he's special. This is when Po stops trying to become what he thinks he should be and starts using what he actually is already. Instead of becoming graceful like the Furious Five, he uses his weight as a strength. He develops his own chaotic, clumsy, enthusiastic approach that only he can do. When Po finally defeats Tai Lung, it's because he's learned to fight like Po. Rolling downstairs, using his belly to bounce attacks back, turning his weaknesses into advantages. When Tai Lung throws insults at Po, it's that moment the secret reveals itself. It's just accepting who you already are.
You're just a big, fat panda.
I'm not a big fat panda. I'm the big fat panda.
You make your life special by showing up as yourself, not by waiting until you become someone else or trying to force it. But self-acceptance gets much harder when you discover your past is full of trauma that you forgot even existed. In Kung Fu Panda 2, Po learns that his childhood was built on tragedy. His parents were killed in a genocide and he was separated from them as a baby. Everything about his identity was actually constructed to protect him from an unbearable truth. The villain Shen becomes the perfect embodiment of Po's trauma because he's directly responsible for the massacre of Po's family and the Panda village. Po's first instinct is to fight the memories, to push them away, to stay focused on being the dragon warrior he knows he is, instead of dealing with his pain. But trauma doesn't work that way. The harder he fights it, the more it controls him. Everything changes in the flashback scene where Po stops running from the memory and lets himself fully experience it. His mother's sacrifice, the love, the loss. It was then the soothsayer approaches him with the most important lesson of his life.
Your story may not have such a happy beginning, but that doesn't make you who you are.
That's when Po's perspective completely shifts. Instead of focusing only on the trauma, he remembers everything else. Mr. Ping finding him, Oogway choosing him as the Dragon Warrior, training him with the Furious Five, defeating Tai Lung, all the love, growth, and connection that came after the tragedy.
So, who are you, Panda?
I am Poe.
By accepting his entire story, Poe's past no longer gets to define his worth because he's choosing to see his full story in context, not just the painful beginning and only the trauma. Once Poe stops fighting himself and his story, life becomes something he gets to share. In Kung Fu Panda 3, Poe reconnects with his people and discovers that he's not alone in the world after all. If only genocide had such a happy ending like this. More importantly though, Poe learns to teach others by helping them become the best versions of who they already are. When Poe first tries to train the pandas in traditional Kung Fu, he makes the same mistake that most teachers do. He tries to turn them into copies of himself. When Lee suggests the pandas can learn Kung Fu and be just like you, Poe has a crucial realization.
That's what Shifu meant. I don't have to turn you into me. I have to turn you into you.
He's learned to love himself enough that he can see others clearly too. Instead of forcing the pandas into traditional Kung Fu training, he asks them a different question.
Your real strength comes from being the best you can be. So who are you? What are you good at? What do you love? What makes you, you?
Suddenly, everything changes. Rather than teaching the hugger to fight like a warrior, Poe encourages him.
Hug that log, you! Hug that log like it's the last time you're ever gonna hug it. Goodbye forever.
The dancer gets to fight with ribbons. Poe turns their supposed weaknesses into their superpowers, the same way he learned to use his own weight and enthusiasm as advantages. But now he's doing it for an entire community, spreading that self-acceptance and love to others. This is what loving life actually looks like when you've done the hard work of self-acceptance. You get to help other people discover that they're already enough too. Life stops being a solo struggle to prove your own worth and becomes a shared celebration of everyone's unique strengths. Poe has gone from escaping his life to accepting it to sharing it. That's the progression that makes all the difference. Jake's story begins exactly where Poe's character arc got him in the end, but that leads to very different challenges. Jake might look like the laziest character in Adventure Time, but he's not. He's simply selective about what deserves his energy. While everyone else is stressed about quests and responsibilities, Jake's making his perfect sandwich, or just hanging out with his best friend. He's figured out life is happening right now, not after you solve all your problems. Enjoy life as it is at the moment. And that means embracing the messy, imperfect reality of living, which is evident from the way that he handles situations when they don't go according to plan.
Dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sorta good at something.
It's actually how Jake lives his life, that you don't wait until you're perfect to start enjoying the process. There is no end result, there is only growth. Jake applies this same ideas to relationships. For him, hanging out with friends is the whole point of living life. There's no end goal to that.
Homies help homies. Always.
But maybe the most telling thing Jake has ever said comes near the end of Adventure Time when he's literally returning from death.
I'm just coming back for fun. Because it's great being alive with you.
Think about that for a second. Jake returns for the pure joy of being alive with his friend. Just the experience of existing alongside someone he loves is enough for him. Jake doesn't wait until he's a different person or fixes some aspect of his personality or life to enjoy existing in the moment. He just does what he thinks would be fun. Like in Jake the Brick, one of my favorites, where he literally turns himself into a brick in a crumbling wall for an entire episode because that's his lifelong dream, to be a boring old brick.
Finn, ever since I was little, I wanted to see what it's like to be a brick in a brick shack when the brick shack falls down.
While he's sitting there, he gets completely absorbed watching a bunny build its home. The bunny keeps losing its home and rebuilding it, and Jake comments like he's doing this nature documentary, completely delighted by something most people would find boring after a few seconds. That's the key to how Jake loves life. He finds genuine meaning in the smallest things, like watching a bunny build a house. He doesn't take himself too seriously, and that is a great form of freedom. But Jake's just enjoying life way of living has a dark side too. Sometimes going with the flow looks a lot like running away from responsibility. In Ocarina, Jake shows up to his own children's birthday party 3 hours late and doesn't even bring any gifts with him.
I didn't remember to bring you guys any birthday presents, but I did bring lunch. It's macaroni salad.
Well, I guess it's some kind of gift. His son Kim Kil-hwan has had enough. He reveals that he's bought the deed to the tree fort, forcing Finn and Jake into a landlord situation to teach Jake about the real world. When Jake still doesn't get it, Kim Kil-won gets direct.
It's time for you to get real. Get a job. No more games.
But Jake's response? He admits he never even tried.
Yeah, no. I never even looked for a job.
Instead of facing the problem, Jake tries to solve everything with affection and a handmade gift.
I love you, 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 I love you.
The ocarina he gives Kim Kil-won isn't even functional. Jake made the holes with the back end of a pencil. He didn't actually create the internal cavity. But he genuinely believes that the effort and the fatherly love can substitute for actual responsibility. What Jake calls not taking himself too seriously, his son experiences as childishness and irresponsibility. That's Jake's trap. When you're always choosing ease over effort and going with the flow over pushing back sometimes, you can end up failing the people who need you to show up as an adult. Alright, before we dive into the differences between these two characters, it's worth noting what Jake and Poe actually have in common, because on the surface, they're remarkably similar characters. Both of them love the simple pleasures: food, friends, and having fun. Neither one of them looks like your typical hero. Jake is a stretchy, magical dog who'd rather make sandwiches than go on quests sometimes, and Poe is an overweight panda who works in a noodle shop. Both of them mess up constantly. Jake's schemes backfire, Poe regularly crashes through walls and breaks everything he touches, but they keep going anyway. They don't let their failures define them or stop them from trying again. Most importantly, both of their stories deliver the same fundamental message. Life is not just for the perfect, disciplined, high-achieving people and everyone else is just rabble on the side. No, every life is meaningful, every mistake is part of life, and everything these two characters do is just part of the process. But here's where their stories diverge completely. Jake and Poe start from opposite places and face opposite challenges. Jake begins from a place of self-acceptance. He's already okay with who he is, maybe even a little too okay. His problem is that his comfort with himself sometimes turns into avoidance of anything that might disrupt his chill. When life gets complicated or requires real responsibility, Jake's instinct is to float past it rather than deal with it. Poe starts from the exact opposite place: shame, insecurity, and desperate attempts to escape into fantasy away from himself. His problem is that feeling himself, being himself, just feels unbearable for him. Poe has to fight a war with his own self before he can even begin to enjoy his life. This means that Poe and Jake's paths to loving life look completely different too. Jake's journey is about protecting his joy in the face of the cruelty of the world and learning when to step up and to be responsible. Poe's journey is about acceptance of who he is, where he came from, and what he's capable of. He has to learn that he doesn't need to earn his right to exist or to matter. Both work, but they're designed for completely different starting points, and they give us different lessons. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us start from Poe's place of shame, comparing yourself to others, and the nagging feeling that we're never quite enough. Most of us have responsibilities that can't be floated past. We have jobs, we have bills, we gotta pay rent, we have relationships that require us to show up even when we don't feel like it. We carry our past hurts that didn't resolve themselves. We compare ourselves to everyone else online, scrolling through social media, wondering why everyone else seems to have figured it all out and loving their lives while we're still struggling. What do they have that we don't? Why can't I be more like them? That's why Jake and Poe work so well as a pair across their different franchises. Jake represents the goal of natural joy in being alive. He's the reminder that life can be light and fun and meaningful without being a constant struggle, without pushing back against every difficulty that comes your way. But Poe represents the process most of us actually have to go through to get there in the first place. The messy, uncomfortable, and sometimes painful work of making peace with yourself before you can truly enjoy anything else. So, how do you actually learn to love life itself? If you're somehow starting from Jake's place and you're already comfortable with yourself, the answer is in protecting that joy while learning to step up and stand up for others. Don't let going with the flow become an excuse to avoid people and responsibilities. If you're starting from Poe's place, which most of us are, the answer is that you have to do the uncomfortable work of making peace with your flaws. Stop fighting the parts of yourself that feel shameful. Accept that your worth isn't something you earn through external achievements, it's something you already have. Whether you're more like Jake or Poe, the lesson is actually the same. You can't love your life if you're constantly trying to escape it or fix it in some major way. You have to start by loving the person living it. And then you can spread that love to others. And if you want to dive deeper into Jake's approach to finding joy in everyday moments, check out our video on Jake's philosophy of presence, because sometimes the simplest wisdom is the hardest to actually live.